Merry Christmas, Mike.
Same to you, Robbie. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing, excuse me, I'm doing really well. Thanks. We had a rough start to our Christmas with a little stomach flu in the household, but Hayden and I came away unscathed. My wife was not as lucky, and today, Grandma is coming to town, and Great Grandma. So we are pretty excited, and Hayden is, he doesn't really understand what excited is, but I'm sure he is.
Oh, he's going to be so stoked when Grandma gets there.
Yeah, I mean everybody loves Grandma, and then Great Grandma hasn't met him yet, so she is about to pee herself with excitement in her 92-year-old britches.
Nice. She's going to be in tears, man.
Oh, I know. Yeah, she's pretty stoked.
Speaking of which, I'm staying in my childhood bedroom, and it's kind of sentimental.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
we're bringing back some memories.
Yeah, it really is.
I
Really
hope
is.
they're all good.
Yeah, they're mostly good. My brother's here, and we were just talking about today's topic, which is kind of exciting for me, actually, that we came to this conclusion. I recently watched the film Minimalism, and I don't know if you've seen it yet.
I know I haven't seen it. It's on my it's on my you should watch list on Netflix, but I haven't gotten around to actually doing it yet.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. I've been kind of interested in what these guys have done, especially from my perspective as a filmmaker and how they've launched the movie. But it is essentially about, stripping things from your life, and are we getting too, it's not a new concept per se, but are we getting too wrapped up in commercialism? And they think that, simplifying your life and your belongings and everything about it can, just make you a more healthy, well-rounded, and focused and happy person in the long run. And so I brought up the idea of, would that be a good topic to delve into with regard to um, you okay over there?
Yeah, my headset just fell off, so I'm back at it.
Oh, are you in the inversion table?
Yeah, I'm doing a little back work. I got one of those Iron Man approved inversion tables.
Oh, beautiful. So I thought maybe we could, look at simplicity and simplifying training and your life and how that may relate to a healthier perspective on everything that we do. And you seem to be in tune with that because that's sort of your philosophy in general. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm huge. I think from a training standpoint, if you kind of look into it, or if anybody read the article and the link that we had about running, and are you running too fast, and that philosophy in general is incredibly simplistic. Um, it really kind of sways its way towards, listen, all you've got to do is run this, pretty much slow 80% of the time, and 20% of the time, a little bit of variations. And that part tends to take a little bit of a more of a scientific approach it in terms of when do you place these within the week, and when do you place these within your training cycle, and how hard. But generally, if you take, a 5-hour run week, simple math is you gotta take 80% of 300 minutes and make those easy, and then the other 20% you make hard, and that's it. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be, we live in a world of where, and this term drives me insane. I think it does you too, but just the quote unquote hack trend that seems to be going on, where everybody's trying to find like the bigger, better thing that's nobody's heard of. That's usually a shortcut, when the reality is the simplest ways are usually the most effective, and simplifying your life to meet those just reduces stress in every way possible, which just makes, I think, everything more enjoyable.
Sure. I think that, regarding to that running philosophy, I've been kind of taking that to heart and running my 45 to hour long slow runs just to kind of keep in the groove a little bit. And over the last couple, I've mixed in what I would think about 50 yards of kind of not super hard, but just kind of get my legs moving a little bit faster just to mix the pace up a little bit. And I've done that maybe, 6 times in that run.
Yeah.
Something simple just to kind of keep my legs reminded that they're going to have to go a little bit faster, just so I don't fall into that bucket of, that one pace Mike guy. And, but it's really taken a burden off, and I know that at some point it's like, cramming for finals or something, or getting to the end when the stuff's really going to get harder. There's going to be a little more complex calculating towards that training, So, but in the meantime, why overburden yourself with things that might be 4 or 5, 6 months away? That's where I'm at right now. So we were talking about it, my brother and I. He's really kind of embraced the simple life, where he's got about 8 T-shirts and 3 pairs of jeans, and
Oh man, he and I are estranged brothers, man.
yeah, and he has his workouts, he has his routines, and like you said, man, in this world of hacks and quick fixes and things like that, man, we were just talking about that, and he quoted Shakespeare. Actually, he said he has a quote that says, "Listen to many, speak with few," and I just thought that was kind of cool, because there is so many different, and I've fallen prey to that big time, which is why I'm so intrigued about getting out of that cycle. There's a million emails in my inbox because I've been interested in everything on the planet, and I was talking about how I walk around my house, because over the years I've been intrigued with entrepreneurial stuff and how to write, and I've got books on how to sell greeting cards. I've got all this stuff, man. And I've got all these books, and you know what they do every
Man,
time I see
you
them?
gotta come to KC, man. The Hallmark headquarters is here. You could really get some good intel.
I mean, when I do come there,
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
probably have to stop in there just to scratch an itch that I've had forever. But what happens when I see these books about how to find flow, how to do this, how to do that? I've read a lot of that stuff, but I haven't finished it and pursued it. But whenever I see these things laying around my house, it reminds me of something that I haven't done, and it makes me anxious. And it's just too much, It's like, what? I just got to get rid of that stuff, man. And so that's why I'm going
Yeah,
to my coach right now to kind of get
yeah,
simplified.
there's so much noise
Hmm.
in today's world. I mean, there just is. There's so much. Obviously, the world we live in is very impulse driven, very I want it now driven. Um, but with social media and pretty much every bit of information, every bit of intel and data and triggers and everything is at your fingertips.
Hmm.
And for people who have situations where they struggle with anxiety, they struggle with depression, they struggle with dealing with absorbing and kind of differentiating through and kind of finding their way through the noise, it can seem impossible. I mean, and not just from a life standpoint and how you live, but also from a training standpoint. There's a million different articles and a million different websites and a million different people and coaches and athletes and pros and blogs and podcasts and everything that's telling you to do this or do that, or 5 ways to make you faster and 5 ways to do this, and the new training method is this, and all the it's like, what do I even listen to?
Yeah.
And I think that we, both you and I like to read a lot, like to kind of immerse ourselves in topics. And for me, it's quiet. If there's people out there, I know everybody and their brother is getting ready to do New Year's resolutions,
Hmm.
and I would start with stripping away the fat, and I don't mean that by from a everybody wants to lose weight in the new year. I mean stripping away the fat from your life, um, minimizing the noise, minimizing how many things and people and circumstances and that you have to filter through, because it can stress you out and it can raise your anxiety level. Um, One of the biggest things I ever did is, about 3 years ago, I, was going through something, and I ended up changing my cell phone number and deleting every single bit of information out of my phone.
Wow,
New,
that's
new cell phone number, erased all my contacts. So all I had were like these core 15 or 20 people. I got off Facebook. I got off pretty much everything you could possibly imagine. I just left it. I'm on Twitter. If you want to follow, Bruce_RTB. I'm a pretty boring follow, and if you despise sarcasm, warning, uh, don't follow. But to me, it's like everybody's so caught up in every day being glamorous and fancy. And I get a people give me a hard time because I'm such a creature of habit. But what I've found for me is that being a creature of habit, I mean, I eat the same breakfast probably 340 days out of the year. I do think, but they're right in my wheel, so there's less things I have to think about.
what is that breakfast, by the way?
3 eggs over easy, 2 slices of turkey bacon, and I take 2 pieces of Ezekiel bread and put a little peanut butter and honey in the middle, a glass of almond milk, and I'm ready to rock and roll. And
Okay.
that is literally my breakfast every morning if I'm at home. It never changes. Um, and I was reading a couple things before I'll shut up for a minute. Is uh, that I actually read a study recently on training adaptations and how life stress and training stress collide. And this is something that you and I have always talked about, kind of off the radar a little bit. Is that there's so much weight put in towards training stress, and that's all that matters. When the reality is life stress is stress is stress, whether it's from a physical adaptation and workout, or it's from a mental and emotional stress. And they did a study, and they separated two groups, in college students, and one of them was like zero stress, like no stress, and the other one was tons and like an enormous amount of stress. And they put them through a 12-week cycle, and the people with did the same everything, and the group with the no stress showed significant gains in upper and lower body musculature from their workouts, and the high stress showed almost zero.
Yeah, I can totally get that, man. Because I am that the poster child for that group that didn't improve. I think in a lot of ways because I'm just so inconsistent with everything, and I work on that. That's one of my true desires in life is that consistency that you found. And this might sound ridiculous, but I think about that in terms of like eating the same thing and relatively the same thing, so you're not always putting your body through a whole new regimen or shock system. I think you need to shock your body a little bit sometimes because it's good for the immune system. But I always think about it like I've had a dog now for a long time, and what my dog does is show constant energy and constant alertness, and and my dog eats the same thing every day. I've just been intrigued by that. You know, and I don't know if dogs are just that way or like I've had dogs in the past where they've kind of turned into table scrap dogs, and they become sick and lazy and what have you over time. And maybe that's just
Hmm.
my imagination, but
No, it's
uh,
true. No, it's true. Usually they just get way too many calories because human food is so much more enriched and calorie dense than dog food is.
right, which brings me back to human food. And there's a part of me that thinks that we all eat too much anyway, in general, and for the energy. So instead of like relying on oxygen and clarity and less stress and things, you know what I mean? I think food compensates for that a lot of times. It's like we need to get all this food in us for energy, but energy's already there. You know what I mean? Like if your body is functioning well and oxygen's flowing well and you're hydrated and you're breathing and all that sort of stuff. So it's just an intriguing topic for me on the nutrition side. Um,
Yeah, I think not just from the nutrition side, but for me, it's like, um, the when you can limit the amount of choices you have to make within a day,
mm-hmm.
and you have to limit the amount of internal turmoil or thinking of should I go here, should I go there, or I was reading an excerpt, an article from Ryan Holiday, who's the author of the book that I gave you, and he was like, I eat at the same breakfast place every single day, and I eat the exact same thing every single day because it instills a level of comfort. You know what you're going to get, you know your surroundings, you're comfortable there, you don't have to guess, there's no anxiety. He's like, and every couple of months I'll like drive past, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to live on the edge, and then about a mile later do a U-turn and go back. Because I think being a creature of habit is, that's people I think tend to frown on it these days because it's not exciting, it's not fancy, and it's not glamorous. I'm like, oh, there you go again, doing the same thing again. But if it works and you're able to limit the amount of stress and anxiety and question here and should I do that or should I do this, um, before I got married and we had Hayden, my training structure looked almost the same, Monday through Sunday. I mean, which is great, because, yeah, you do need some variations, but you know how to fit in your schedule, you know how to do things. And that's kind of been my biggest obstacle here lately is finding a way to arrange a schedule to where I know what I'm going to get within the week. I can plan myself for success. And on the flip side, I can limit the amount of guilt and anxiety I feel by not getting it in on a certain day or feeling like I have to get it in when, Hayden and Allie are both home. And so, part of my reasoning actually, by signing up for the Leadville 100 lottery, it's 100-mile trail run. It's something I've never done before. My reason behind doing that actually is, this is going to sound insane to some people, but is to work on, practice, and perfect incorporating my family into my training and into my life. I can run with my dog. I can run with Allie. I can run with all three of us. We have a sweet jogging stroller that we got for Christmas. And I'm fortunate enough to where I can actually, when it gets warm enough here in Kansas, which God knows when that'll be, I can actually run Hayden to daycare in his stroller and then run it home.
Oh,
So yeah, which is amazing. I mean, I'm so pumped that I can even like have that opportunity. And so I've been running with my dog lately. And it's like, so compared to triathlon training where I can't take him swimming, can't take him on a bike ride, to where my primary focus would be running, I can incorporate them into probably 65 to 70% of what I do. So we can do something together as a family. We can do something outside in nature. We can do it healthy, and I won't feel guilty about it.
yeah, the guilt, man.
Yeah, it is. It kills me. It really does. It kills me. And the older Hayden gets, and like, man, I thought about it yesterday. Like when I didn't work out yesterday, and I was looking at all these people like, posting their like proverbial, look at me working out on Christmas, dude, dedicated, hardcore, committed. I'm like, sure you are, and I bet you take tomorrow off. Because it's I didn't do anything yesterday, and I loved hanging out with. It was just the three of us, but if I choose to go swimming and riding, I either got to leave and go swim and carve time out away, or I've got to carve time out away and go ride. And which is almost worse if I choose to ride the trainer to save time. I'm in the same house, and it's like, oh, you're choosing not to be with my son, and like I can hang out with them. And even though Allie is super, super generous when it comes to like letting me train, understanding how much I love the sport, and she's done her fair share of triathlons and half Ironman, so she gets it. But that was kind of my reasoning behind signing up for the lottery, at least. I doubt I get in. I think your chances are pretty slim, but it was to kind of work on incorporating family into life and still being able to kind of maximize and fulfill my kind of endurance urge, but doing it in a different but more healthy way.
Yeah, I think that's a great awakening, man, because many of us probably get into this sport and we realize that it's going to take us, you know, we're going to have to go to a new level, something that's completely out of our realm that we've wanted to do in the past, and it becomes a little selfish. And I think what you're kind of telling me right now is that there is a way to just make this a little bit of a smoother lifestyle. And it's like when that I it's hard for me to run my dog because she loves to stop and she's always distracted in the whole 9 yards. So I kind of would push that aside, especially when I would have to go on my functional runs, whether they be tempos or things like that, where they had to be certain whatever. But that running slow paradigm made it easy. So I have been taking the dog out, and it does take away. I mean, that guilt is such a huge factor, I think, and probably what disrupts families more often than not is that separation, and then it's hard to how do you work them into the whole training thing? But why not make them a part of it? Friends, and it goes to friends too, because I used to get away from training with friends because I'd have a certain specific workout that I needed to do, and didn't want anybody to disrupt that, so it becomes this isolation move. We have this tendency in triathlon, I think, I think we're probably natural isolators in general on some level, and really love running off into the sunset by ourselves, which is great, and I do love that too. But there's no reason why it has to be 100% isolation, or in our own little selfish world.
Yeah, and I think, I kind of had the same epiphany as well with my dog, is that, I'd walk her every morning, and now with Hayden and taking him I take him to daycare in the mornings, and it was like I got to choose between my run and taking an extra 30 to 40 minutes to walk the dog, and I'm like, well, now I can like take her on all my runs because I'm running, back to running super slow again and doing these base miles. And like this morning, we went out and did like 3.2, I think, like super slow. But I felt amazing when I was done because I felt like I did the right thing,
Yeah,
because I didn't have to come home and like walk out the door and be like, yeah, I'm going to do me. And sorry, Kona, you just got to lay there and, feel bad. But then you go out and you choose to take them with you. And, you know, this might sound crazy, but I totally believe dogs can smile. And, like with me running with her, it's like she's smiling and loving it. She gets back home and she's worn out. I'm like, man, that was awesome. Like,
yeah,
I totally love that. Versus, what would I have felt better doing what I just did, like a literally like an easy 30-minute run with my dog, or gone out and like set a PR in for a 1 hour. Honestly, probably the run I just did. Because it included everything that mattered: training, uh, sticking to a process. It's like sunny and 45 here today.
hmm
um Taking care of my dog, which is taking care of my, so um I wasn't avoiding or neglecting anything. I was That was like the perfect case, was like maximizing it all. And so like when it gets warm enough and Alex is going to start back into running soon, and I was like, we can do these things together. So like the more I can I feel like it's just going to raise my and even if I don't get into Leadville, and I've already kind of prioritized my year with doing Leadville or not doing Leadville and just doing triathlons. It's like how much I can maximize doing our stuff together, which I think will just inevitably raise my performances, because when I do work out, it'll be focused and purposeful and together. And when I do it solo, it'll be a little bit shorter, but I won't have those like, man, I need to take 2 days off because I've just been neglecting the family. And then that hurts you too from taking so much time off. So I think it's really just, it's finding a healthy balance, being supportive, figuring out what really matters, and not necessarily like revamping and kind of reprioritizing what your goals should be. But there are a million ways to skin a cat,
oh sure,
and you have to find a way what's best for you. And a lot of times that doesn't go with reading an article or doing what Joe Schmo Triathlon is doing down the road, or doing what I do, or doing what you do. It's sitting down, writing out, what do I want to do this year. I always do this at the beginning of the year. I'd have two columns. What do I want to accomplish this year? What do I not want to give up? And those have to meet. And if they don't, I kind of have to change out what I want. What do I want to accomplish? I want to do X. Well, if do X is in the same line of, I don't want to miss any family time or any family events or miss any important things with Hayden. All right, well, either those things are going to match and I need to kind of figure out how those are going to equal out, or I need to change out my expected result. And that's just kind of one of those honest conversations I think people need to have with themselves, because the sport is so individual. I mean, you touched on it. The sport is so individual, and it is what you want it to be, not what everybody else wants it to be, and not what other Ironman somebody else is doing, and not everybody else's races. It's like it's what you want. It's like why you got into the sport to begin with, and I think we just forget that sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, ultimately, we got in the sport because we wanted to feel better. We wanted to be clearer, healthier, and well-rounded, I think. And it's kind of ironic how the sport kind of has a tendency to make you less rounded if you go excess and overboard and things like that. But it's about keeping that in perspective. I mean, my brother, even he doesn't have a car, so he rides his bike around town a lot, and he's into cycling, and he rides to work, he rides to the store, he does all these sorts of things, and we underestimate that as a value proposition in our life. That's that 10 miles of riding around the city is no joke. It's a legitimate piece of the workout puzzle. And if I could do that, drive or ride my bike to the coffee shop for work every day, that's like another 5-10 miles or whatever, instead of just driving my car over there. um, that that gives you that's that simplicity piece that we're talking about. It just takes the car out of the equation, it takes gas out of the equation, it takes guilt out of the equation, whatever it is. And there's so many ways that you can work functional, proper, enlightening kind of ways of living your life into your training, I think. But I just don't
No,
do it all the time.
yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I mean, I agree that, you get into sport for the right reasons, and then you kind of get lost in everything and almost everyone else, you know, their races and their accomplishments and comparison, and, I want to do this, and like, I want to do that. And like, I think there's just so much, like we talked about at the beginning, there's just so much noise. And I think that's why you get so lost. Like you start triathlon and you kind of walk into this humongous like green pasture of 1,000 acres. And each step you take within the sport, more trees and trees and trees and trees pop up. And by the time you've walked a mile, you're like, I have no idea where I'm going. I just know that I'm in this sport, but I kind of forgot how I got here. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's just so important for everyone just to simplify and remember kind of who you are at your core and why you decided to do it, because that's where you're going to get the most joy out of it, and that's where you're going to get the most accomplishment out of it, and and honestly, like, that stuff isn't, um you can't, like, that stuff's not replicated to a time on the top of a finishing banner. you know it's like, that's like, we talked about it in the couple previous podcasts. It's like, what are the greatest moments you remember? And like, mine have like zero to do with racing.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking about it this morning, and I was like, man, what's one of my favorite memories ever from an actual race? And one of them is you and I at Louisville in 2014, um, sitting on those steps, listening to the national anthem.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
waiting for everybody to kind of like walk in the water, and like just taking our times and hanging out with family. And like, for me, it had been such a difficult time, and I was just like, man, how I am so appreciative to be here and so happy with who I am sitting here. And so like, the end result literally had like, at that point, it all became moot to me, because I'd already feel like I had won before I had gotten there, because I feel like I did it the right way.
Yeah. We didn't get all stressed out in the pre-race procedure and have to walk a mile. We just kind of stood there and waited for the line to come to us, and then jumped into the end of the swim line. And it did. It was like it was an extra hour and a half of sort of those triathlon friendship moments that was super powerful, because our family was there and we just kind of hung out. And it was sort of a precursor for what we would experience after the race. Because that you know 12-hour period for me, and a little bit less for you, but you're out there in the Wild West on your own, and it's just sort of, and it's amazing. It's an amazing stepping stone that we all go through, and I think we all love to hate that, and it's just part of the reaching the next level. And as long as that there can be balance along the way, and we can remember what the whole process is instead of just ramming our head into that rock for 6 months just to do that race and then look back and go, wow, what just happened? I don't, and then because it's sort of, I was just watching a thing about football players and how they beat themselves up just to win the Super Bowl or whatever, and then how many get depressed afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of a similar thing, because if we're just completely focused on that race, and especially if you don't win the Super Bowl in your mind, then it's like, wow, what did I do that for? And where am I and who am I? And you kind of lose track of, like you said, the initial goal or what the real purpose is for doing this training.
Yeah, man, they even have like a name for it. It's called the post Ironman blues,
Yeah,
where people like do one and like they finish it and they're like just literally depressed for like months.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's kind of the a warning to kind of be had is when you give yourself a finite end to a goal and a means to what your whole year is going to, equate to from a value standpoint. I mean, you can literally put it on a map. It's kind of like waking up one morning and going to your mailbox and it's a note and says, you're gonna die next year on the 30th at 2 p.m. And you're like, crap. Um, the end is coming. I know it's here. I'm not even gonna plan my life after it. And I think Iron Man to an extent is the same way because you know a city, you know a date, you know a time, and once you walk through that that banner, while you're elated and for the next 24 hours, a lot of people are left wondering and questioning, like, all right, well, I did that, so now what do I do? Because it is so trendy, and and then now what's the next thing up? Like I think you said it. I think it was your blog post. Last week, I feel like I had to do another Ironman and I think we've all been that way. Is you kind of lose sight of the good that has nothing to do with honestly swimming, biking, and running. It's like it has to do with why you love to push yourself and why you love to be healthy and why you want to dedicate yourself and be committed and the positive impact it has on your life, not just wearing your finisher gear the next day and going back to your office and getting an Ironman cake, um, and then being like, all right, well, now what are you gonna do? Because you kind of give yourself you race yourself into a dead end instead of giving yourself more positive outlets.
yeah, absolutely, man. I wanted to. I was listening to Tim Ferris podcast the other day, and he had three guests, and I forgot the guy's name, but he was really pretty sharp. He had some pretty interesting views on how to live life and things like that. And he 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 was asked, what his keys to life are, and he came up with a three key approach, and I think it fits in here, and I'm just going to share it if that's cool with you.
Yeah, man.
He said the three keys to life are: one, approach everything with enthusiasm. And I think that in relation to what we've been talking about, can you get enthusiastic about running with your dog or with your kid? You know what I mean? Like these, even though it doesn't feel like a workout, but it's sort of like that mentality that Martin Luther King used to say: if you're going to if your job is to sweep the streets, be the best street sweeper. You know what I mean? Get mentally into your activity, whatever it may be. His second point was connect with people and expect magic with every encounter. And I think that's such a great way to look at it, man. It's like you just never know who you're going to meet, And I think sometimes we get so self-absorbed and distracted, and I think that fits into simplicity as well. Is like if you're not distracted or stressed or preoccupied with so many things, you can meet people and expect magic within that encounter. And
Yeah, yeah. That those are. I mean, if you could live by just those three alone, I think you'd end up having a pretty successful and happy life.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, actually, those are just two, but um,
I think there's often this misconception of like you have to be I think there's a huge difference, maybe not definite from the definition, but doing something extraordinary and then just being exceptional.
hmm
And I think a lot of people get caught up in like the extraordinary and like and when it comes to from a training aspect, like I gotta do these like ball busting workouts that are like just epic. I mean, you see it all the time. I did a legendary brick and I did an epic workout and I did this and I'm like, well, what did the rest of your month look like? It was probably garbage.
mm,
Um, but if you buy into the process and you just choose to be exceptional at what you do every day, then the end result might be extraordinary. But if you set yourself up in a way to, just do the best that I can today, and you don't set these outrageously high standards and expectations that you really have no merit, it's like, eh, you know, for me, all I got on the books today is a 30-minute run. Did it with my dog, and you know what? I feel like I did an exceptional job. I was happy. I did it. The weather was great. I got everything I wanted to get out of it. Was it extraordinary? Not by any means. But if I approach every day with trying to get those values and those feelings and those emotions out of it, then I think in the long run, when you can add 120, 150, 200, 250 of those exceptional days of just knowing that I did what was required and feel good about it, then those totally will um, just totally take over a person who tries to go out and do something extraordinary every week. Because even if you accomplish it, you're gonna be like, well, I didn't do this or I didn't do that. Or you're gonna be looking for the next extraordinary thing. Or more often than not, you bite off more than you can chew, and you get depressed and you take it out on yourself. Like, I can't do this. Yeah, I told you can't do that, and then just set yourself up for failure. And I think that what you said about just choosing to be exceptional every day is just a great way to simplify and approach training and life.
yeah, I agree. And the third thing he said, which really kind of made me question my paradigm a little bit and think, was that he said whenever people say that doesn't make sense, he said dig deeper because that's where the gold mine is. And he said understanding in general is an illusion and the world is too complex to truly know. And I was like, wow, man, that's kind of interesting, right? Because how many people will just say, how quick are people to say, that doesn't make sense when you're training for Ironman, or that doesn't make sense when you're working out, or that doesn't make sense. But it does make sense, for whatever reason, because it works for other people. And I think that people are so quick to judge and to say that something is ridiculous, but when we sit down and really listen and kind of center ourselves, these things sort of make sense. It's just sort of this greater world purpose kind of thing that we ignore because we're so consumed with, hitting our next split or whatever it may be. I know that's kind of a huge concept, but
No, I mean it goes directly back to like every conversation I have to have with one of my athletes and they're like, "Wait a minute. So I have to train slower in order to get faster." Well, that
yeah,
doesn't make sense.
yeah,
Well, why doesn't it make sense? Well, I don't know. It doesn't seem right. Well, why doesn't it seem right? Oh, well, I guess because I've always done it a different way, or because so and so said to do it this way, or because I see these people doing these things. And like there's no amount of articles and research papers and whatever I can send. They're finally like, okay, I get it, I get it. I guess I'll give it a try. It's like they still don't believe it until they start to see some of their own gains, some of their own personal bests and improvements. It's like, all right, I understand it, but you can't understand it until you do it and you participate in it. And I think that is why everyone gets so defensive about so many things these days.
yeah,
Like everybody's opinion is like, oh, this is my opinion. I'm like, no, it's not. You either read an article, you read a blog, you were told something by somebody, or if we want to go this way, like I was having this conversation with my mom the other day. I was like, listen, for most of these people, politics and religion are nothing you decided. They were decided for you 100 years ago by your great 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 grandparents. And more than likely, you just picked up the same political affiliation and the same religion just because that's how you were raised. So because something doesn't make sense to you doesn't mean it makes sense just because you haven't been open to accepting another way of thinking.
Right. Yeah, when somebody says it doesn't make sense, that doesn't mean it doesn't really make sense. It just means their perspective is skewed, especially if it works for most people or whatever it may be. It's kind
Yeah,
of like that thing about your diet. It's like eat the same thing all the time. I mean, that doesn't make sense, but because there's what varieties of spice of life, right? I mean, you should be eating sushi for breakfast or
uh,
whatever. I'm just saying that's kind of like what's been ingrained in a lot of people. But I would be, you know, I bet there's a lot of people out there that kind of eat the same things every day and do pretty well with it.
yeah. See, that's exactly. That's a great point. Like you say, varieties of spice of life. I say variety is for the weak. Why can't you just be set in stone in something that you know that works and be happy with it? And I think a lot of people you could replace the phrase that doesn't make sense with that's interesting. I haven't really thought about it that way. But
Yeah.
nobody wants to say it that way because you're going to be way too open to someone else's opinion and you can't go on some rant. Um, where it's different strokes for different folks. It's um, like talking to a new athlete who a previous coach says you've got to ride a 95 cadence because Lance did it and that's it. And I'm like, that's not how it works. Everyone has a natural cadence. Let's try it this way. And they're like, well, I haven't thought about that. How does that make sense? Well, it's perfectly fine for it not to make sense. It's not perfectly fine to assume that because it doesn't make sense to you for it to mean it's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, he threw in one more tip about how to handle an argument that's not going anywhere or a discussion that's not going anywhere. He said, if I'm in a conversation and somebody's just not moving or not budging on anything, and his point was, it's like, why keep talking because it's never going to end. So he said the best way to bring it to a close or at least change the direction of it was to ask the person, well, what would have to happen for you to change your mind on this issue? And I just thought that was really awesome. What a great
That's
question.
that is a great question. That's like to a T a quote that I heard at a sales seminar. Um, that was like, what would the world have to look like in order for you to be able to do this?
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's like it doesn't have to be any different. It's just you have to choose to either prioritize differently or use better time management or just decide that it's that important to you. When it really already is. You're just choosing to take a stance because either because you want to or because you don't want to admit that you were wrong or you don't want to admit that somebody else could be right. But that's funny. That's sales all the time. It's like, well, what if you need to think about it, that's fine. But what would the world have to look like for this to become a reality for you?
Yeah. And if they say nothing could make a difference, then you can walk away and not waste your time anymore.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So, all right. Speaking of that, I know you got to get going. You got to go pick them up at the
Yeah,
airport, right?
yeah, I do, man. I got to pick up grandma and great grandma. And I do want to give a couple updates to Slow Man Try, who left us an awesome review on iTunes. I hope you recognized it. That was your first ping-free podcast. I listened to your feedback. I appreciate it. I'm kind of old. I mean, I tend to struggle in the tech side of things, so I just kind of figured out the do not disturb uh, thing on my iMessages. So that was a ping free episode. Thank you for your feedback. And I also would like to give a Christmas cookie update that I abstained
Completely?
completely.
Whoa.
Dude, Allie literally, I think her stomach flu was so bad she lost 12 pounds in 48 hours.
That's incredible, man.
That's how bad it was. I mean, given she had the stomach flu, we have a 5-month-old, and I had oral surgery earlier in the week. It was like we were kind of doomed to like lose weight over Christmas. But yeah, man, the sweetest thing I had were these were some cinnamon rolls Christmas Eve morning with my breakfast and Christmas morning. But other than that, man, no cookies, no cake, no nothing. Now that's going to change drastically once grandma and great grandma land.
Okay.
But
so you're not out of the woods, man.
I'm not out of the woods yet, but I did make it through Christmas. We don't currently have any in stock at the house, and I assume we'll be going around town doing stuff with them. But a win is a win. I was exceptional these last 2 days.
Well, I took up the slack for you, bro. So we're
Did
good.
you?
Oh yeah.
Oh no, I forgot. Your mom probably makes some. There's probably some mean stuff laying around there. How much cheese did you have?
Not as much as you would think.
Really?
It was a lot more on the cookie Chex Mix trail.
Oh, dude, Chex Mix is like
She's insane. It's my great grandma's recipe that like is protected by vault every year, and they break it out and make like gallons of it. And
dude,
man, it's just ridiculous. The minute you start, you just cannot.
You can't stop. I mean, it's such an evil rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because you can almost convince yourself that Chex Mix is like borderline. It's not healthy, but you're like, it's not healthy. It's like straddling the fence.
Yeah. Well, their secret ingredient is bacon grease, and they just got their Chex Mix is like the triathlon of food. You just get in and you can't get out.
Man, it's like, well, if bacon grease, then you're gonna have somebody like, oh, that's paleo Chex Mix.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
right.
a win. Oh, dude, that sounds so good. Yeah, that sounds so good.
Yeah, maybe I'll ship you some just so you can experience what I've gone through. We've got, I think we've given away 2 or 3 T-shirts based on the reviews. I'm still offering a free Crushing Iron T-shirt for a review and an email to me at crushingiron@gmail.com. So I can know it's you, and we can get the address exchange, and I'll send that T-shirt out. So I think we've given away 2, maybe 3, depending on the updated iTunes reviews. Because one guy said he left a review. I haven't seen it yet, but anyway. So there's still a few T-shirts out there if you want to scoop one. If you give us a review and email me at crushingiron@gmail, we'll get that done.
Yep. And later this week, Thursday's podcast, we will talk all things cycling. We'll have our first guest on the show. We'll talk about his transformation in cycling, his improvements, and how you can become faster this off season and reach a whole new level.
Yeah, he's kind of a rags to riches story, right? Or no?
He is a big time. He is a big time rags to riches story. I wouldn't call him straight rags, but maybe a washcloth. Yeah, he's a washcloth to riches kind of guy.
Yeah, moderate to average cycler that really improved.
Oh, yeah, big time. He was the guy that did that 120-mile ride with like over 10,000 feet of climbing in Knoxville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, man, we'll have him on Thursday. So I know cycling's been a big topic for us to cover, and we've hit running and swimming pretty well. So we'll circle back around and hit some cycling and let you know what you need to do in the off season to get better when racing season comes. And I'll give a few workouts to help you get along the way.
Love it, man.
All right,
buddy.
Mike.
Have a good holiday, the rest of the holiday with your mom and great grandma.
I'll do it, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, bud.
See you.
Bye.